All right, make it nice and easy. You got this. No instruction from me today. You're just going to be as smooth as you can. I'm good. Very good. Really nice. Recentering. On that brake. High power. Nice. Perfect.
Oh, welcome back to some more quarantine content. Hope you guys are staying healthy out there. So recently I was going through some old hard drives and I came upon a file named Tucker's First Flight. And I had almost forgot that my first flight was actually recorded. I've shared a ton of first flights on this channel, various students, friends, Jacqueline's first flight, but never my own. Along with sharing my first flight footage, towards the end of this video, I want to take it as an opportunity to share with you guys how I recommend getting into the sport. Before we get into all that, if you guys missed the last episode, we dropped 2 brand new limited t-shirt designs on tuckergott.com. We've got the wonderful blueprint. This guy is super good looking, printed both front and back. And we have the humorous "Do Not Report Tucker Got to the FAA t-shirt. Up until April 13th at midnight, every single order is going to come with a free caution sticker, and 2 lucky orders will find a brand new GoPro 7 Silver in their order. We also restocked on the Eat Sleep Fly and the classic Risky Biscuits t-shirts. So if you like any of those designs, make sure you get an order in before the 13th and you might just find a fresh new GoPro in your order. All right, on to my first flight. Let's just set the scene a little bit. I had always wanted to fly a paramotor. I've always been involved in aviation. When I turned 15, I started taking flying lessons in an airplane. 16, I soloed. 17, I got my private pilot's license. But paramotoring was still something I really wanted to do. In the summer of 2013, I decided to make this dream a reality. This was the summer between high school and college for me, and I had worked at a local skydiving center for about 2 years prior to that. I initially started work as a golf cart driver. I'd hand out waivers to skydiving students. I'd put on the sweaty harnesses for everybody in the summer heat. Then eventually I got upgraded to a parachute packer and a video editor, a bit more responsibility, and it gave me the opportunity to make a decent bit of money there. So throughout 2 years of working there, I saved up about $8,000, and that was enough to just get me started in the sport. I remember there was this pivotal time towards the end of the summer in 2013 when I was like, it's now or never. Like, I'm about to go into college. I've got the money in my bank account finally, and I went to the bank and I took out $8,000 in cash to pay for my training and my paramotor gear. I basically drained my bank account at the time, but at that time I had to figure out how I was gonna do it. I was the type that was like, you know, I already have experience flying airplanes. I had been flying RC planes forever, and I worked at the skydiving drop zone, so I knew a little bit about canopies. And I was like, I can just teach myself this. I'm sure I can do it. But I was encouraged by a lot of people to actually go and get training, and now looking back, I don't regret it one bit. So I did some research online. I started watching a bunch of YouTube videos. I Googled some stuff, and what I came upon was Aviator PPG down in Florida. At the time, they had a good bit of videos online sharing their adventures in the orange groves down there. That sort of thing really appealed to me. Looked like a good group of guys, so I decided to book my training with Aviator PPG. Now, just prior to my training, which was booked in August, I believe, was EAA AirVenture Oshkosh in Wisconsin. I went out for the first time ever and got to see a lot of cool airplanes, but I was more interested in seeing the paramotors and meeting some of the guys there. So that was the very first time I met my buddy Eric Farewell. We hung out a bit and he actually showed me a wing, and there was this open field he took me to, kind of where the hot air balloons launch, if you're familiar with AirVenture. And Eric kind of got me cutting this wing a little bit. There was a nice breeze, and I remember turning around for a little bit of forward kiting. He gave me a push and I got about 2 feet off the ground. And I just remember this smooth feeling. It was the moment my feet left the ground. And I remember thinking how cool it was that I could say I flew at EAA AirVenture Oshkosh. Behind the show line, in a random field, under a paraglider, 2 feet off the ground, but technically I flew. Little did I know, a couple years later, I'd actually be flying an actual paramotor in an aerobatic demonstration team on the main line. Mind blown. So that was my very first time actually kiting a paraglider wing. A couple months later, I hopped in my little 2006 or 2005, I think it was, Subaru Forester, drove down New Jersey to Lake Wales, Florida. I think it's about 1,200 miles away. And I was ready to start training. I was so stoked. This was literally a dream come true. Training consisted of some ground school, learning about the regulations, some weather, some gear related stuff, and a lot of kiting. It was August, it was nice and hot outside, and I remember reverse and forward kiting in the heat. We had a beach day where we took the wings out to the coast and did some tows with a long length of rope. Got pulled into the air. Everything was going really well. I felt like I was gaining control of the glider. Everything was starting to click. And I think it was the third or fourth day I actually was ready for my first flight. Now at the time, I had decided to purchase a Blackhawk 125. So that's the motor I was flying. And the wing I was flying, I believe it was an Electra, I think a 26. That wing was definitely a little bit big for me, but it would work. And later on, I would go on to buy my very first wing, which was an Ozone Buzz, I think Z3, 23 meter. It was a paragliding wing, super heavy, super hard to launch, but that was my first wing. So on to the actual footage of my first flight. It was a beautiful evening, Lake Wales, Florida, and I was ready to go. I was feeling confident. I'm the type that gets a little bit nervous for these things, but I was confident in my skills. I was confident in my instructor, Eric, and I was ready to go. So somewhere along the line, the audio was lost from this video clip, but I'm gonna do my best to voice over what's going on. Eric had checked out all my gear. We got radios on and everything looked good to go. There was a little bit of wind this night. It was pretty smooth laminar wind down there in Florida, but not a ton, just enough that I could reverse launch it. So I go for my first inflation, wing comes up and I'm kind of just fighting to keep it up there. There's not quite enough wind and I'm kind of running backwards with it, and I decided not to commit and turn around because it was just kind of sagging. So I lay it down, good practice run, everything's ready to go for a second attempt. And on my second attempt, I actually get the wing up all the way, staying under it, keeping it up there, and I turn around and just lack of wing control at the time. It seemed like the right side had a little bit of a collapse. Wing falls down and Eric helped me out, set me back up for my third attempt. No issues yet, good practice, good abort, didn't damage any equipment. But we're ready to go for round 3, and round 3, I finally get it right. So I inflate the wing, kind of running backwards a little bit with it, and I turn around, keep running, and I'm a little timid to add the power. That was always kind of my thing in the beginning. So I slowly roll on to power, get my speed up, and eventually, once everything looks perfect, commit fully. This moment right here is something that has never left my memory. At this point in time, I had my private pilot's license. I think I had 60 or 70 hours logged. But this moment was special, taking flight for the first time in a paramotor. What stands out in my mind was the view right in front of me. Having flown a lot of other aircraft, you always have an instrument panel in front of you, the big cowling, the doors, there's a lot of blind spots around you. A paramotor is much more unique in the fact that there's nothing in front of you except for your knees. I vividly remember that picture of just seeing the ground sort of start to flatten out in front of me and realizing how special this really was. So my first flight only lasted about 9 minutes. I basically got up to altitude above Lake Wales, took in the sunset, did some very shallow turns, just kind of feeling things out. Didn't do anything crazy, no wing overs, no sats on the first flight. And eventually I set up for the landing. I set up a really big landing pattern. Eric's on the radio giving me guidance all the way in, making sure I hit the spot just right. And right up into my flare, I get it pretty perfectly and turn around and smash that wing on its leading edge. Eric's like,
"Hell yeah, man! That was so sick! I taught you how to fly! Did you see that? You flew! Fist bump! Wow, that was outrageous! I'm gonna post that video right on my Instagram right now! You landed like a freaking ballerina, man! High five! Oh yeah! Oh, that sucked! One more!
And yeah, the rest is history. From there, after training, I went home with my gear and I kind of just kept progressing on my own, learning more things, building more confidence. And I kept returning down to Aviator pretty much every winter to build more skills, to get new wings, try out different gear. And still to this day, I pretty much end up down in Lake Wales at least once a year in the winter time to hang out with everyone, do some flying. So I want to take the end of this video to kind of recommend some things for you guys that might be in the same boat I was, looking at the sport saying, I really want to do that, but I don't quite know how to get into it. One of the first steps you can take is to check out the PPG Bible. This is a book written by Jeff Gowen. He's been doing the sport basically since its inception. And he's made a really, really good book that kind of outlines everything that you kind of can know about paramotors. It's not going to be a book that will get you into the air. It does not substitute training in any way, but it just gives you a good background, a good foundation to start learning a little bit more in depth about paramotoring. I'll link that book down in the description on Amazon. Feel free to pick it up there. I've got a copy myself, and I think I appear on a certain category about cross country and the Icarus race, so check that out. The next step is deciding on training. Now, a lot of people enter the sport with the idea of, I need to select my gear first. I think a lot of people just want that instant gratification, like I need to get my hands on gear right now. But I think it's much more beneficial to get training first. That way you have hands-on experience, you've got a couple flights under your belt, you've test flown some gear, and you have a better idea of what gear will specifically fit you. So obviously I trained with Aviator Paramotor and I continue to go down there pretty much every year. So I can honestly recommend them to you guys for training. I've been through the course, I've sat in on a whole lot of newer courses as they've evolved over time. I've seen their facility and I know their instructors, so I can confidently recommend them to you guys for training. The training's typically 14 days long. They provide all the gear for you to train on. They have an extremely comprehensive ground course, which is a super important part, in my opinion, of getting into this sport. They use things like tandem flights, they've got a simulator, they've got a tow machine, all tools to make getting into the air easier and more safe. And most pilots end up leaving with about 25 flights, which sets a good foundation for you to keep progressing on your own at home. Currently, they're booking as early as June 2020, so if you've just learned about paramotors, you really don't have to wait that long to pull the trigger and get into it. I'll put a link to their website down below right next to that Amazon PPG Bible link. They've got a ton of information on their website, and if you sign up through their website using the form and you select my name at the bottom as the reference of how you learned about them, I'll shoot you an email and you get a free shirt of your choice from Risky Biscuits Co. on tuckergott.com. That's about all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed my first flight footage and my bad lip syncing overlay. Stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy getting into this sport if you're just getting into it. And make sure you check out the new designs on the website down below, and before the 13th, possible GoPro and a free sticker with every order. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Till then, peace.